Hey, okay, so I want to share with you something really fun today, which is how to do a year in review. I feel like every November I'm fully immersed in planning for the following year, and maybe you feel the same way. And we have a four-part process that we always do when we are planning out how to have a really profitable year. And I take my clients through this process as well. But the first step in the process is always to review last year or this year, actually, if you're doing it in November, like I plan to, or even October. Maybe this will be out in October. Anyway, first step is to do a year in review. And this is really important and something that I never really want to do. I'm always just like, okay, what's next? I want to like move forward to the next thing. But it is extremely important in order to know what areas you need to be spending more time in and where you should be directing your efforts overall, right? So I'm going to share with you the 8 questions that we ask ourselves at the end of every year to review, see what worked, what didn't, and to use as a foundation for planning all of next year. So get a notebook and maybe even like you can pause the video after each question or just write the questions down and do them later with your notebook or something. And you might hear contractors, but just ignore that. Okay, so question number 1, what business mindset practice has been working for you this year? So these are the things that, when every time you do them, you feel like your entrepreneurial mindset is on top. You feel like, powerful. You feel like your limiting beliefs aren't coming up as much. You close more sales calls. I find if I, lean on certain mindset practices, I'm so much more likely to hit my targets or to not self sabotage or to show up confidently or to have my next best idea or to not procrastinate. So ask yourself what mindset practice has been working for me this year and write that down because we're obviously going to leverage that even more next year or use it as a clue for where you need to be spending your time next year. And that leads us to question number 2, which is what mindset practice or what mindset has not been working for you this year. So this is not a practice. I shouldn't have said that. But basically, what has been coming up for you that's not working for you? What's holding you back? What is tripping you up? All of those things, write them down here. Spend a good chunk of time here. I used to hate everything to do with like mindset work when it came to business. I was like, just give me the numbers and like let's move forward with the next system or process that I want to put in. But I noticed none of that really mattered if I was being the bottleneck in my business or if I was holding my own self back. So take your time here, journal it out, get a cup of tea or something, and figure out like what is truly holding you back right now. And usually it has to do with that mindset. Okay, question number 3, what community growth worked last year? So, when you're like putting in the work and you're putting out content or you're networking or you're doing joint Instagram lives or something like that, what actually worked for growing your community? What strategies actually produced engagement? What brought new people into your world? If you ask people, hey, how did you hear about us, what are they saying? And if you don't know, then it's a good time to maybe survey your audience as well. And this is something you can ask me more about, or maybe I'll do a video on it separately, but it might be good to pull your audience, find out some of these key details if you don't know them right off the top of your head. If you're like, I don't know, something's working, but I don't know where they're coming from, I don't know what it is, you need to know. So figure out a way to find out. But if you do know, write them down here and kind of rank them. So you can rank them on like which ones produce the most results, which ones produce the most engagement. You can rank them on which ones you enjoyed doing the most. So if the thing that brought in the third most amount of new community or like audience members is actually the thing that you love doing the most, but you never did it that often, move that to number 1. You know what I mean? So I would rank them here. And then question 4 is which didn't work. So when you're putting out blog posts and you're just hearing crickets or like, you're not getting any feedback or you just feel like it was a lot of work, but not a lot of results. Um, take some time to really think about this, because a lot of times I'll be talking to my clients and they're like, yeah, you know, I do this podcast every single week, but you know, 2 people listen every week. And that's, you know, it's okay if that's like your passion project and something that you want to keep doing, but it can't be your number one community growth. If you've been doing it for like 3 months or 6 months and it's not getting any traction. So be realistic here. What's not working? This is a stop doing kind of thing. And then we'll move on to question number 5, which is which nourishing techniques really worked. So you'll know that they worked if you're getting great feedback, if it feels really good doing it. These are things like live videos, free trainings, Instagram stories, Instagram Live, Facebook Live, like anything that actually is providing value and creating trust with your audience is a nourishing technique. So blog posts, what else? Podcasts, anything where you're providing value. Obviously, what things really worked? What things did people say like, oh my God, thank you for doing this? Or, you know, if you get on the phone with people, they're like, well, I came here because of this free training and I loved it so much that I booked this call, or something like that. This is very important. So spend some time here, because this is what takes people from just coming into your community, finding you from wherever, maybe an ad or Pinterest or, you know, social media, and turns them into buyers, which is obviously what we want, right? And then question 6 is what didn't work or didn't make much impact. And again, these might be things that you're spending a lot of time on and they're not producing results. And so we do have to be realistic with ourselves here and be like, okay, what is not working? And you'll know that by going through your numbers, going through your conversion rates, like, you know, looking at the stats on your blog or on your podcast, or what posts on Instagram are getting the most engagement or saves. So use this question 6 as something that you really dive into the numbers on. But also, if you want to pull your audience, this is a great thing to ask them as well. Okay, last 2 questions. What sales techniques worked? So I want you to think really hard here. You know, did doing those live videos actually get people on the phone with you? Is your sales page converting? What's your sales call close rate? Is it increasing from last year? Is it decreasing? You know, is urgency really working with your audience? Is it when you did a training for somebody else's audience that so many people took you up on this offer? Is it a webinar? What things actually work? This is where you want to be spending a lot of time. And I want you to go through, you know, if you're a new business and you've made like, you know, under $100,000 last year, I want you to go through all of your sales, see what your top, you know, product is, and go through every single person in that, you know, in your report or however you pull your details, and ask yourself, like, where did they hear about this? Was it from a webinar? Was it from my podcast? Did I have a sales call with them? If you don't know this off the top of your head, you really need to spend some time here. This is like something that we spend a lot of time on every single month, figuring out where people came from and when and at exact, if they're watching a webinar, at exactly what point did they purchase. Like, we're very detail oriented here, and because of that, we know where we should be spending our time. And I want you to do the exact same thing. And also, this takes a lot of pressure off of you, because then you don't have to think next year like, oh, what should I do that's new? Well, no, if you have something that's working really well, we're going to double down on that, you know. And that's what we like to do. Some people like to just like always have new strategies going on, you know, in their business, which is cool too. But we like to primarily focus on the ones that we know already work and ask ourselves, how can we do it bigger and better, and you know, make those sales techniques even stronger. And then obviously, you guessed it, question 8 is which techniques didn't work. So this is the webinar that flopped, or this is the, maybe you did one of those like summits with a group of people and at the end you pitched your product and nobody purchased it. You need to know these things. This is where you put some hard boundaries into place in terms of like saying no to other people if that's something that you've been doing, or, just helps you with your launch plan for next year too. If you're like, all right, this didn't, the challenge didn't actually work. I'm not going to do another challenge next year. Or, by day 5 of the challenge, this happened and people started dropping off, or whatever it is. So we a lot of times we'll test different launch techniques. We actually just tested one last month, and that we won't be doing again. So it's good to test different things, but make sure that you're actually like getting the data and like looking back at what didn't work so that you know what to lean more into last year. And even if you're going to innovate on that technique, you have like a jumping off point. So what didn't work? You need to know these things for sure, especially if you're doing your daily non-negotiables. There are things that, didn't work and we can just scrap those and stop doing them so that what you're doing every time you're at your desk and you're doing your non-negotiables or, or making any offers in general, you're being more effective because hey, these things have worked in the past, so let's do them again. Rather than being like, let's just try this today, which is cool too. But if you want to just like get the most out of all the time that you're at your desk, let's use stuff that we know already works, right? I mean, it's obvious. Okay, so that is our year in review, journaling, prompt thing. Let's get it a new name. But these are the 8 questions that we ask, and then we move on to the other 3 steps of the, full year plan. And I have a whole blog post on this. I'll leave the link to the blog post here. It's all about how to plan your most profitable year in business. It starts with the 8 questions, and then there's 3 more steps that are a little bit more strategy based and goal based and all of that. So I'll leave it here. But in the meantime, I hope that was helpful. I'd love to hear from you, like within those questions, which things did you find, most shocking or most surprising? And yeah, let me know.